What's your reaction when I show you this? I bet some of your stomachs dropped, or maybe you smelled it rather than felt it. Do you know how to change the diaper? Do you know why the baby is crying? Wah! Do you know how to feed the baby? Ask any parent. They'll tell you this job is overwhelming. So what do you do when this guy becomes real? Hello, my name is Matthew. And today I'm going to talk about the need for parent education programs and why the government should be supportive in preparing young adults and budding families to be better parents. First, I'll focus on the dilemma. There is a major lack of quality parenting skills in the United States. And once we understand that problem a little better, I would like to propose a solution. The government should subsidize access to parent education programs, and I'll go more into what exactly that means in just a moment. That may sound like a big goal, and it is. But by the end of this speech, I hope you feel this goal is worth pursuing. Let's return to the problem, though. There is a major deficit of quality parenting practices in the United States. In fact, most reports find the United States to be the world's worst in child abuse. One report by the International Business Times finds that the United States ranks worst in South Africa, India, Zimbabwe, and the United Kingdom in terms of child abuse, reporting that 500,000 children born this year alone will be sexually abused by the time they are 18 years old. To give you a sense of scale, if all those people held hands in a line, they would stretch across the entire state of Tennessee and 50 miles past. However, this is the most dramatic and powerful example of poor parenting. But often, poor parenting takes a smaller, more innocuous form, one that maybe some of us are familiar with: corporal punishment. Now, I was spanked as a kid, and I won't say that I didn't deserve it. And I'm sure a lot of us are in the same situation. But that doesn't mean this is a quality parent education strategy. Spanking is often used as a last resort. And honestly, sometimes it may seem necessary, but the research doesn't back it up. In a report by the American Psychological Association, Yale professor Alan Kasdan writes, "There is no need for corporal punishment based on the research. We are not giving up an effective technique. We are saying corporal punishment does not work." His ideas have been confirmed repeatedly. Physical punishment can lead to everything from anger issues to mental illness. Exactly the outcomes we're trying to avoid. And that means the strategy does not work in the long run. What's more, parents don't agree with this research. In a poll conducted by the National Public Radio with Harvard University, their findings suggested there is a major gap between parents and research experts' assessments of the quality of child care in the United States. And I want to point out a number that study also found, back on this slide again. They found that 2/3 of parents support corporal punishment. Now, that doesn't make them bad parents by any means of the imagination. Instead, it can mean one of these two things. First, parents aren't informed on more effective techniques. Or second, and more likely, they probably don't have the necessary training or resources to implement these programs. So as you can see, this is a major problem that needs to be addressed because it affects all of us and everyone in the future. First and foremost, we need good parent education programs because they can improve the lives of children and parents by guiding them through a genuinely difficult experience. Second, the government should sponsor these parenting programs because the government has a vested interest in making us and everyone good citizens. Before I explain the benefits of parent education programs, I'd like to inform you of exactly what they are, as you may be wondering. Contrary to some belief, parent education programs don't attempt to change your parenting style or scold people for doing the wrong thing in parenting. Instead, they go over a variety of parenting techniques that can be used in a variety of ways. For example, have any of you ever tried reasoning with a toddler? How did that go? Now, what if you understood the psychology of the toddler a little better? What if you understood a little bit more about how that toddler thinks? And why limit yourself to toddler? Any stage in the developmental cycle of the family can be covered by these parent education programs. And if you had that information, you could parent them independently and on your own path, given that information. That's what parent education programs are about. They don't tell you how to parent. They tell you ways you can parent. Now that we understand what these programs are, let's consider how parent education programs can improve the lives of children. The JAMA Network, the most widely circulated medical journal in the world, published a study of an early childhood intervention program and found participation was associated with better educational and social outcomes up to age 20 years, which was the age cutoff for the 15-year study. This program and the many like them have consistently confirmed that when children are provided the appropriate developmental structures for success, the results are positive and lasting, which is why it's so important to provide these programs as soon as possible. Parent education programs can also improve the lives of parents. Some countries have already discovered this. The Netherlands has a parent education service called Passionate Parenting, which I encourage you to look into. They have a variety of resources from experts in all fields that are excellent for bolstering your own parenting skills for when that time comes. One of their stated goals is to bring parents and professionals in a variety of fields together at education seminars and workshops. In these seminars and workshops, parents form connections with other parents, all of whom have the same goal: to raise children as effectively as possible. Beth Arkey of the Child Mind Institute, which is a research organization focusing on parents of children with disabilities, finds that parenting groups can offer a wealth of information on anything parents might need. That's because these parenting groups bring people together so that they can share their perspectives, they can share their knowledge, and together they can share in raising children more effectively. This network helps people acquire all the resources that they need, or at least as many resources as they can find in these parent groups to relieve stress, which is of course associated with better outcomes in parenting. Now, despite these benefits, there are some questions that must inevitably be raised. One of which you might have thought when you saw my title slide. Should the government have a hand in parenting? And if so, how would the government pay for these programs? First, I believe that the government should have a hand in parenting. Imperial Valley News states, parenting affects prison costs, defense costs, and healthcare costs, all of which are intrinsically government responsibilities. Now, of course, you may be wondering how in the world parenting affects things from prison to defense to healthcare. When parents raise their children well, and when they have all the resources that they need to raise them well, they're more likely to be kept out of the prison system, for example. In addition, these parent education programs often approach things from a non-violent side. So essentially how these costs are, in terms of defense and prisons, how these costs are reduced is that when parents teach their children to be non-violent and empathetic, they understand people's perspectives more and are more willing to work out their problems in non-violent means, which would reflect in prison and defense costs. Additionally, healthcare costs are reduced by parent education programs reducing stress levels with parents. There are many studies that show how stress is highly correlated with illness. So, this is undoubtedly the best move from the government's perspective because it provides a variety of ways to reduce costs and government responsibilities, which is exactly how these programs would be paid for. Ideally, they will be run by a single government-funded, nonpartisan agency, similar to how, for example, NASA operates. Not a great analogy, but it's one of those systems that is, However, if there were serious concerns about this level of government involvement, I would propose that the government begin an initiative to subsidize and supervise parent education businesses, thus compromising between government involvement and the liberty of the people. However they are implemented, parent education programs are essential to our improvement as a nation, and I want to help you see that a little better. Parent education programs like the ones I have described make parenting easier, more effective, and as a result, more meaningful. Just imagine, you've always heard that parenting is one of the most stressful but rewarding times in life. But if we could reduce this stress, then more of the reward is left, which benefits both parents and children. But they don't stop there. When more parents have access to these services, more parents will learn to set a good example for their children, which then inspires them to be good parents as well. Soon enough, these programs could create a self-fulfilling prophecy of positivity, putting our country's parenting practices on a more effective track. I've said a lot in the past few minutes. I've explained America's parenting situation, which needs improvement, how parent education programs can help fix this problem, but by no means are a solution finally, and how together we can imagine how these programs will create a better future for all of us. None of that talk matters without action, though. We should all get involved. We should contact our representatives and tell them how much these programs will help us and our country. We should stay informed on the latest research into these programs. And by extension, anyone who has a kid or is thinking of having a kid should start learning now. Because this little guy is counting on you. Thank you.